It's often been said, success is a journey, not a destination. Do you really think that great athletes are simply born and not made? Or that coaches and parents who support those athletes do so by default and not design? I think not. Each episode, I have a chat with a fascinating person, from high-achieving athletes to super successful coaches to the parents who go all out to support their athletic children. We talk through their why, behind their what, on their quest to pursue excellence. If your aim is to stretch and grow as an athlete, coach, or parent, then this show is for you. This is your host, Coach Dwayne Carlisle, and you're listening to the Pursuit of Excellence podcast. This episode, titled How to Build Mental Toughness and Resiliency, is brought to you by Carlisle Performance Systems, located in San Jose, California, the place where even the best athletes are made better. I need a quick favor before we dive in. If you're digging this podcast, and I hope you are, please subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. It just takes a couple minutes, and it means a ton to us. Before we get started, I want to let you know I'm a feedback fanatic, and I would love to get your feedback and comments about the show. Please feel free to reach out to me on social media at Coach Dwayne Carlisle on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook to post questions for upcoming topics and or just share winning strategies that's worked for you so others can benefit from your approach. I'd love to hear from you. Okay, on to the show. Our guest is none other than Dr. Pat Ivey. He is the Assistant AD for Athletic Performance at Arkansas State, the former Associate AD for Athletic Performance at the University of Missouri, where he was awarded Collegiate Strength and Conditioning Coach of the Year in 2013. He's a former football player, played professional, played college. This guy is one of the thought leaders in the industry. He's absolutely outstanding. We're going to cover three things today, amongst many others, but here are the key things that you're going to gain from this. One, he goes through his pre-game strategies, how to prepare for your upcoming competition, practice, and it carries over into academics as well. Secondly, talks about his right here, right now, being fully present in the moment approach. And lastly, he talks about issues surrounding how to overcome adversity. We all know when things are going well, we tend to do well. But what happens when adversity strikes? He gives us some winning strategies to help you through how to overcome things when they don't go well. As Mike Tyson is famous for saying, everybody's got a plan until they get hit. Well, he gives us a plan to overcome whatever situation it is that you get hit so that you don't stay down, you get back up. We're looking forward to this topic. Here we are, right here, right now, with Dr. Pat Ivey. As promised, I have Dr. Pat Ivey, who's going to be joining us for the Pursuit of Excellence podcast. I'm so excited. Not only is he a phenomenal professional, he's a great friend, one who I look up to in this profession. He's been instrumental in helping me to shape some of my thoughts around training and how to service the athlete. Doc, welcome.
Hey, what's going on, DC? How you doing today?
Oh, man, I couldn't be better. I couldn't be better. So glad to have you on. This is an honor. It really is.
No, the honor is mine. It's an honor and a pleasure.
Well, look, Doc, let's start with your story. Tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are today as the Assistant AD for Athletic Performance at Arkansas State.
Well, I'll give you the short version.
Okay.
I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan. I played college football at the University of Missouri and had a chance to play professional after my college career. During my last few years, I developed all during my career, I developed a really good relationship with my strength and conditioning coaches. And Coach Dave Tobe, Coach Donnie Summer, Coach Bob Jones were the three strength and conditioning coaches. Coach Tobe offered me a position, said if things didn't work out professionally for me, that he would like to have me in the weight room with him. And there were some things that happened. Donnie Summer, who's now at TCU, became the head strength and conditioning coach, and I became a graduate assistant in the weight room. I was then promoted to a full-time position shortly after getting my master's. And I went on to the University of Tulsa in somewhere around 2002 to 2004 as the director. I returned back to the University of Missouri as the director of strength and conditioning. Then I was promoted to assistant AD, then associate AD, all the way through 2015. Then in 2016, 2017, I took a position on campus at the University of Missouri as an assistant vice chancellor for access and leadership development in the Office of Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity. I then wanted to return to coaching, so I then went to the Arkansas State University, where I assisted one of my former assistants, Kaz Gazadi, who's now at SMU. And I spent about 4 or 5 months as his assistant. He went on and took another position as a director. And now I've been promoted to assistant AD for athletic performance at Arkansas State University.
Wow, you know what? I'm amazed that you could make it that short, because your background is decorated. And so I want to fill some gaps in. You're the strength and conditioning coach of the year. What was that, 2012, 2013?
Correct, 2013.
2013. And you guys at Missouri built a model program that many people emulated because it was so successful in serving the student athlete. Tell us about your thought process when you went about putting together this program. For how many athletes at Missouri? 500, 600?
550.
550, right? 550 athletes. You guys put together a model that's still admired today. Tell us about your thought process behind that.
Well, I believe it all starts with the top. Our athletics director at the time was Mike Alden. Mike was a revolutionary leader. He thought outside of the box. He challenged people to think outside of the box and then act on those thoughts and just be responsible, of course, and respectful with everything. And then it was Gary Pinkel, the head football coach. Between those two and Dr. Brian Maggart, who's now the AD at Louisiana, Lafayette, those three people were very instrumental in allowing us to be able to serve our student athletes. We were challenged, we were encouraged, we were inspired. Another person that I have to mention is Dr. Rick McGuire, who was our track coach for 27 years, became the director of sports psychology. So between those people, we had a lot of support to support our student athletes. We were encouraged to, I'll give you a quote from Mike Alden. He said, he wanted our department to be nationally recognized and known, and we were given the support to do so.
Given that charge to be nationally recognized and known, talk to me about the different components and the different pieces that you guys put together to service a student athlete, because it was a model that was unparalleled.
Well, everything starts with the base of strength and conditioning, and you base that on good, sound science. We have some really good, smart people on our staff over the years. A lot of people know who's been on our staff. It was important that we based everything off of science and how we could apply that science. Strength and conditioning was something that we knew that's what we were there for. The next component that we added in 2007 was our Department for Sports Nutrition, and Jana Heitmeyer headed up that department. We couldn't stop there. We had to look at the entire total athlete. We looked at, obviously, people were doing yoga and Pilates. We started what we call corrective biomechanics, where we looked to the assistance of people that had backgrounds in athletic training and physical therapy. And we looked at how we could incorporate that into our training. We called it corrective biomechanics. Then we continued on. We knew that we were missing something, the mental side. Everyone on our staff at some point went to school or continued their education in some capacity. I guess that was my passion, was how the mind works in terms of sport. And with Dr. Rick McGuire being readily accessible, it was a very good fit. It was the next step that we needed to conquer to learn how to train the total athlete.
Well, look, on that note, you hold the distinction of having your PhD in sports psychology under Dr. Rick McGuire. Let's tell me a little bit about Dr. Rick McGuire and the great things that you learned from him. And I know that you are an adjunct professor working in the positive coaching. Talk to us a little bit about that. That's fascinating.
Well, Dr. McGuire's philosophy was to have a comprehensive and integrated approach to sports psychology. He believes that sports psychology should go to and through the coach. It shouldn't be someone that you bring in from the outside. They meet with your athletes for a few hours and then they're gone. He believes through the role modeling process, if you can educate the coaches can deliver those services based on the education and the science that's out there. He believed that through the training room and through the weight room, we could reach every student athlete. And so he looked at his performance staff, our performance staff, as being major players and a conduit to delivering great services for our student athletes. So it was a very good partnership between us. He's someone that Mike Alden looked at as a mentor, I believe, himself, and as a person to help guide him how to develop student athletes and what was in the best interest of the student athletes. So when he became the director of sports psychology, that's how those services really just exploded.
Now, fast forward, you're at Arkansas State, and I know that you've implemented a sports psych component into the athletic program that the student athletes are benefiting from. Is that correct?
Correct.
What's that look like?
Well, I guess I've been doing it for a few years now, for about 8 years, teaching mental conditioning, and we developed a curriculum. Dr. McGuire wrote a book on it, just based on the sport of football, but the skills can be taught. It doesn't matter which sport you play. The skills can be taught if you're an athlete. So how it looks right now is I spend a lot of time with staff, just educating them on the things that I've been able to learn, and so that they can take these ideas and this information to their sports teams. My direct responsibility, obviously, is football, and what we do is we teach that during a class. We call it Professor X Mondays.
Okay.
We taught it during the summer, and we've had this sports hero theme all summer. So it's just something that really fit. It's something that the players bought into, and we just teach them the skills of focus, mental toughness, components of mental toughness, emotional stability, help them to understand motivation and how that feeds into preparation, the importance of accountability, and how all of that builds up and leads to performance.
Man, there's some good stuff here. You know what I'm about to attack. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about how do you help your student athletes focus? Let's go focus first.
First thing you have to understand is the skill of thinking right. And what I mean, there's we call it the skill because it's a choice. And if you practice it long enough in the right situations, then you can understand that performance follows thoughts. Performance follows emotions. Emotions follow thoughts. If you can understand that cycle, then you can understand that if you choose your thoughts, and you can only think one thought at a time. You can think them in rapid succession, but you can only think one at a time. So if you have a negative thought, all you have to do is replace it with a positive thought.
Give me an example of how you do that. I want to learn.
We teach them, we show them what positive affirmations are. So if you say, I am smart, I am strong, I am fast, I am tough, when negative thoughts enter your mind, and we teach them that the most important conversation you'll ever have outside of the one with your creator is the one with yourself.
Yeah.
And so why not make that a positive conversation? It's the most influential conversation you'll ever have. So make it a positive one. We actually did some assessments, and we know that we had, this was at the, previously I previously done some assessments with Dr. Jim Ridd and Dr. McGuire, and we learned that a lot of our athletes had a lot of negative self-talk. And obviously you wouldn't know that because it's self-talk. So it's something that these are conversations that the athletes were having with themselves. So you teach them the process of how the brain works, that if you're having these negative thoughts, replace it with a positive thought. It's something that they have to do themselves. And you obviously have to role model it as a coach, but it's important for them to understand that they choose their thoughts. We teach them the skill of time orientation, so they have to be right here, right now, in the present. That performance happens in the present. If you're thinking about the future or the past, let's take the sport of football, for instance. If you're thinking about the last play or the next play, then it takes away from your performance on that play. We teach them what happens when you think about the past. You have doubt. If you're thinking about the future, when you should be focused on the present, then that leads to anxiety and fear. So we don't want them to have that. We want them to bring their best performance. So the best way to do that is we ask them the question, where are you? And the response is right here, right now. Mm-hmm. That means I'm physically here, mentally here, emotionally here. In every sense, I am present. If it's game day, I'm present. During the play, I'm present. If we're in a meeting, you're present. You're not on your phones. You're not talking to the person next to you. You're not thinking about the final you have after practice. You are thinking about that practice. Because if you think about your final exam during practice, practice is going to suffer. Then when you get to your final exam, you'll be thinking about practice because practice suffered. So that decreases performance. We teach them about how to control your arousal level. Teaching them composure, how to do it through breath control, thought control, or physical activity. It takes a long time to be able to teach these things, but these are skills. We teach them the skills of concentration and confidence as well.
Now, do you think that a kid's upbringing, how they see the world, experiences that they may have had, particularly negative experiences, do you find that it's harder to mold them and to change them to be able to have that frame of mind where they look at things from a positive perspective?
I think it's just difficult. It doesn't matter who it is, it's difficult. I've had athletes that come from really good backgrounds, and they may struggle with confidence. You would think, why would you struggle with confidence? Well, maybe there's different circumstances that they went through, and what it takes to build confidence and to be through competence and knowing what you're doing. Maybe they've been really talented and they haven't really had to study the game. Maybe from a concentration standpoint, they're struggling with some things because they got a lot of distraction going on with, if you come from a lot or a little, you still have distractions. And if you don't have the ability to recognize those distractions and eliminate those distractions and focus on what really matters, it doesn't matter what your background is.
Sure. What would a strategy be to help somebody work through distractions or issues around that area?
I like to give stories. I think things feedback that I've gotten, or my own personal experiences, I think drive those points home a little bit better. For example, when you were a coach or an athlete, you may have received tickets to a game. And you get those tickets and you want to give those tickets to people that you really care about. Well, what usually happens when you, on game day, when you have given away, let's say 4 tickets, and your grandmother, your mom, your uncle, and your cousin are there, and it's the first time they're going to see you play. Well, you want to know where they're sitting. So a lot of times what athletes don't do is pay attention to where the tickets seat location is. And during the game, what happens? You make a play in between plays. What do you want to do? You want to point to the stands, or you want to look at the stands, or you want to blow a kiss or something. Well, what happens if you don't know all game where they are sitting. You're distracted the entire game. So what we teach them is know where the tickets are, know where the seat locations are, and or just get some sort of feedback. There's a lot of we usually get to the game 2 to 3 hours before the game starts. Locate those seats, get some confirmation before that they've arrived to the stadium. This goes for coaches as well. Get some confirmation that they've arrived, because you have loved ones that you're counting on to arrive safely. Get confirmation that they've arrived, locate those seats, come out pregame. Hopefully they can get to the game early. You can wave, you can get all of those things done. And then you make your big play, blow your quick kiss, and sit back down on the bench, get the instructions for the next drive.
Gotcha. Now, here's a situation we all face. We've all faced as athletes, former athletes, as well as just in everyday life. Let's say your day's going well, making plays, and all of a sudden it goes sour, goes south on you real quick at a critical juncture, critical time of the game. What strategy would you do to help that athlete to come up, to get back up and come out of that hole?
It doesn't matter if you're the athlete, the coach, it doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah.
You have to park it and refocus. We teach them you have 5 seconds to let that play go. Good, bad, or ugly. You just made the best play of your life. 5 seconds, let it go. You just made one of the worst mistakes you've ever made. May cost you the game. You have 5 seconds to let it go. When you teach everyone on the team that they have 5 seconds, they can help each other from an accountability standpoint. You got to let it go. It's not going to help you on the next play. There's information that you may want to receive, but there's a time and a place to gather that and take that information and move on. Doing it in between plays, you have 5 seconds to figure it out. Okay, I made a big mistake there. Let it go. This is what I need to correct. Don't let it happen again. But you also have times in between series. When you go to the bench, you have the quarter break, you have halftime. After the game, watching video, there's times to go back and analyze what went wrong, what went right. It's just not during the next play.
Right. Do you adopt breathing strategies to help them come out of that? When you say 5 seconds, coach me through how I get rid of that and let it go in 5 seconds.
Well, you have to learn how to deactivate. You have to practice these skills.
Okay.
So we say, focus and practice being focused.
Okay.
So you have to practice this and practice in training, lifting weights. You have to learn how to focus on your breathing, focusing on the inhales, bring you up, focusing on the exhales, bring you down. You have to learn how to do diaphragmatic breathing. We teach them the Valsalva maneuver when you're lifting. Breathing is very important. If you're having trouble getting to sleep at night, develop a routine through breathing. How many seconds in? How many seconds do you hold your breath? How many seconds do you exhale? You're getting ready for a big lift. What do you do to get yourself, from an arousal level standpoint, how do you get yourself in that zone? You're getting ready to go for a big squat. Well, what thoughts are going through your head? How do you control your breathing? What type of physical activity do you might want to do? Maybe you want to slap your chest. Maybe you want to get your partner to give a few little hits on the back and help you to get up to that level that you need to.
Well, I'll tell you what, that's very, very familiar, because when I brought my staff from Purdue to Missouri to learn from you guys, the first thing you suggested was we need to get a lift in. And I see you come out with your chucks on, your weight belt, and you went to my strongest guy, Big Ross Bowser, and here you guys go with a lift off, and I saw you breathing deep, Valsalvador maneuver and all, moving weight, brother, moving weight. So you practice what you preach on that end.
Absolutely, absolutely. I've always loved lifting and training. For me, it's just something that's been a part of me for a long time, and I love helping athletes get better.
Yeah, absolutely. You own the distinction of being Missouri's strongest man at some point, right?
At some point, that record has been broken long since. But at some point, by the time I was a senior, that was a goal that I had, and that's what I went after every day.
So now, let's go through a little moment of reflection here. Knowing what you know now, all this information that you've been filled with as it relates to sports psych and the various disciplines relating to performance, what would you tell your younger self?
There were a lot of questions that I had about the mental side of the game when I was a player, and there were no answers other than get your mind right. That's all we had. Get your mind right. We didn't know how to get our minds right. We knew when our minds were not right, but really how to do it. I wish that I had the information now. I wish I knew how to park it and refocus. I wish I understood confidence, that it's a choice, that you choose to be confident, but you have to be competent. I wish I had known that if there were times when I did not feel as confident, maybe I would have understood how to do more film watching. So until I got to the point where I became competent and used visualization so that I can take my game to the next level. There were too many times that I didn't have the ability to deactivate, which hurt my ability to activate.
Okay.
If the battery's always on, it's really eventually it loses power. And I wish I had known how to deactivate to get my power level back up. The best person I've ever seen in my life was Junior Seau. Standing on the sideline, I was my first mini camp, and he's cracking jokes, great personality, big fun-loving guy. And then as soon as it was time to go in, as soon as he snapped his helmet, it's like, where did that guy just go?
Right.
And when he returned back to the sideline, it was as though he didn't just do what he did on the field. And it was amazing to me how he was able to just keep his energy level so high, but he had a great ability to deactivate.
When you have athletes that come out of high school, they come into college, obviously they haven't received training on mental skills and focus and so forth. What is the first thing that you guys try to attack with a young emerging athlete that is now matriculated to college?
I'll tell you something that we really tried to attack was breathing, just the importance of breathing. And you have these young people that arrive on your campus. One of the first things you're going to do is assess what sort of conditioning level they're in. They are very receptive to listening to any tips or advice on breathing when you are trying to get them to the level of physical conditioning that it takes to play college sports. So that is definitely something. We've just introducing discipline and accountability, helping them to understand those definitions. We tell them basically discipline is do you do what we tell you to do?
Right.
And accountability is do you do what you're supposed to be doing when you're supposed to do it, the way you're supposed to do it.
Right.
Just helping them to understand. We teach them the skills of focus, and then just try to help them to be consistent as possible. Just showing up on time is just a simple skill, I think it is, that we try to teach them early.
So now, as they mature, they've gone from freshman year, sophomore, junior year, and they've been privy to the training methods and practices that you guys have immersed upon them, ranging from weight room, mental skills, and so forth. Tell me a little bit about what you expect them to be. So when they're in the heat of battle, they're in competition, play out how you would want them to respond in critical situations based on the fact that they've been prepared for any and every circumstance.
There's a book called The 5 Levels of Leadership, and that 4th and 5th level is where you prepare people to be leaders. You prepare leaders to develop leaders. So if we can get to the point where they're in their junior, senior years, where they are themselves developing leaders on the team, I feel like we've accomplished our goal in terms of having the team uh, reach the highest level it can reach in terms of leadership. So if it's during the game, if we can have players out there on the field ready to make real time decisions, the right decisions, and communicate that with amongst themselves and with their coaches, I feel like that's the highest level that we're striving for.
Wow, that's awesome. Tell me, what are some of the characteristics of strong leadership?
Uh, Obviously, you have to take care of yourself first. Um, I don't think you can be a leader without doing the things that you're supposed to do, without discipline, accountability, being consistent, and caring about your teammates. You have to be willing to be a servant leader to get the best out of your teammates. They have to know that you care about them as a leader on the team. Your teammates have to know that you care about them as people first, and then care about getting the job done. A lot of times we say there's no I in team, but I found that if you don't help each individual be the best that they can be, then the team cannot be the best it can be. So I think focusing on each and every person, help them to develop and maximize their strengths, and just help to polish up those skills is something that helps the team.
Do you believe in the natural born leader thought?
No, I believe you're born with certain personality characteristics that may make people more attracted to you. But as far as the skills it takes to be a great leader, I think those have to be learned, those have to be taught, those have to be practiced. A lot of times we want our athletes to be leaders, but we don't give them the autonomy, the ability to make choices and decisions, and make mistakes, and help them along with making those leadership mistakes. We know that as leaders we make mistakes, but sometimes we're intolerant of our athletes being leaders and making those mistakes.
So then, how do you deal with a coach that you know in your heart you're dealing with a sport coach and they're not providing the environment for a kid to make a mistake and to recover from that mistake? How do you intercede?
Well, you have to be knowledgeable yourself. You have to be confident in your ability as a coach and as a leader to know that you can take this team through the developmental process. Um, and be able to explain and communicate those things to the head coach. And the athletes spend more time with us as performance coaches, strength and conditioning coaches, than they do their position coach or their sport coach. So there's a lot of time that you have access to the athletes to help them to develop as people. And maybe the head coaches or the coaches aren't comfortable with the term leadership development. There's other terms that you can use to help develop people, develop your student athletes. It's just something you have to believe in. You have to be confident and competent yourself.
Sure. Now, let's take a student athlete who's having an issue, having a challenge with a coach. Maybe that they recognize that coach is giving them a short leash and the coach is just hammering them all the time. You have some that'll just suck it up and they just take it and they internalize it, be it healthy or not. And then you have some who'll sit on the fence. They'll just go to everybody that wants to hear, man, this coach, I can't believe this coach, da-da-da. You know the drill, right? And then you have the very few, that small percent that have the courage and communication skills to go and approach that coach and articulate it. What would your recommendation be for a kid who's struggling with an issue with a particular coach, and how to help that kid work through resolving it with the coach?
That's a touchy one.
Okay.
Because you don't want to undermine the coach. You don't want to betray the trust of the coach. at the same time, you want to develop that relationship with your athlete, and you're concerned about the team, the overall welfare of the team, knowing that if this individual isn't being all that they can be, then that hurts the overall accomplishments of the team. I try to just I try to use stories. I try to use my own experiences to help those athletes in those tough situations. It's important that we help our athletes to be more resilient as well. So, and we can do that by helping them to understand positive self-talk. So if negative can come from the external environment or internal. So we teach them that. We teach them that distractions can come from many places. I tell them that there are days when I will be a distraction to them as much as I'm trying to help them. They have to learn how to take the information that I'm trying to give them, use it for their own personal benefit and for the team's benefit, and put it towards being positive. So I told them sometimes intentionally I'm going to be a distraction, because that's when you have to focus. That's when you have to recognize, okay, this is a distraction. I need to practice my concentration. So I need to acknowledge that this is a distraction, focus on what matters, find what matters, and develop strategies, my own personal strategies of how I'm going to deal with these distractions.
Okay. How would you deal with a kid? What recommendation would you have for the people listening that come from environments where parents have been very, very influential in their career? The type of parents where when they're on the court, they're on the field, they're looking up at their parents. They've been conditioned to do that ever since they were little. They don't realize that they were conditioned to do that, but based on the parent or parents giving feedback all the time, right? All the time, they're giving feedback. That carries over, let's say, to college, or just even, let's just take high school, for example. It's something that they deal with all the time, right? And you see it. You're sitting in the stands and you're watching games. You're like, oh, wow, man, this parent is jumping their kid. Or you just know this kid is just got really, really tight because they heard their parent yell something like, shoot it, right? We've often heard those kind of things. Man, Doc, this is a question for Superman, and I'm coming to him. How do you help a kid through situations like that?
Everything starts with performance, and that's where it ends. If you have to recognize what's helping your performance and what's not, and what's hurting your performance. If your parents being in the stands and their encouragement helps your performance, it's not a problem. If you recognize that it's a distraction, then you have to recognize it as such, that my parent being in the stand, yelling certain things are a distraction from me delivering my best performance. So if that's the case, then you have to develop strategies. If you cannot talk to your parent about your performance and the impact that they are having, then you have to find ways to do it internally. You have to find ways to recognize it's a distraction and find ways to block it out. It's no secret to it. It's something that is there. You cannot, and you have to acknowledge it. You can't ignore it. It's kind of like, it's going back to the, I have tickets, and if I just ignore the fact that I don't know where these special people are sitting in the stadium, it'll go away. It's not going away. I have to acknowledge that it is a distraction, and then you have to develop strategies to eliminate those distractions so you can focus on what it is that helps you to deliver great performance.
That's outstanding. Now, going into a game, competition, any techniques or strategies that you would recommend to help somebody get locked in, loaded on performing?
First, make sure that you know what you're doing. I tell our athletes, make sure you know your opponent better than they know you. And that takes a lot of film review, a lot of meeting with your coaches. You have to understand your scheme, your offense, your defense. You have to work on your technique and fundamentals. You have to work hard and practice. You have to know that physically you've pushed yourself to the point where you can get better. You're getting better. You have to emotionally manage. You have to manage your emotions well. So if you're too high, you need to get yourself down. If you're not excited enough about what's going on, you have to find ways to get yourself excited about what's going on. You have to think about the present, be present in the moment. You can't think about the last game or that this is a championship game. The game is won one player at a time, and it's won with one thought at a time. So if you're having negative thoughts, it's going to most likely to negative performance. If you're having positive thoughts, it definitely helps. If you're having positive thoughts, it definitely helps you with having a positive performance.
Man, I'll tell you, you've been part of a lot of championship caliber teams, having won the SEC West. I was East. My fault. East. Is Alabama in the? Were you guys on the same side as Alabama?
No, they're in the West.
Okay. All right. Whoa, unbelievable. Let's wrap it up with this, Doc. Where can we find you? What are things that you're working on that you want to share with the world? Talk to us.
Well, I'm working on getting myself better prepared to help people. So I'm in the process of developing my own website. It'll be pativey.com.
Okay.
You can email me at performance@pativey.com. All of those things are up and coming. I'm working on just trying to have information that people can find and where it's readily accessible.
I'll tell you, I'm so honored and thankful that you came on the show. The boulders of wisdom that you dropped for the listeners here, I know that if they adopt just some of those principles, oftentimes people always say, when we go to a conference, they're like, if you just took away one thing, then it was a win. Well, you gave a ton of different things, practical things, I think is really, really important that I wish I knew. And I love your answer about what you would have told your younger self, because back in the day, there wasn't really a lot of information around, how to prepare yourself mentally for competition, for practice, for life in general. Is there any last things that you'd like to add around that area?
I think you just said it for life. Something our athletes asked. We were so heavily on helping them mentally with their sport. They said, Coach, we think this stuff applies in life much more than it applies in sport. We use this stuff when we're in class, when we're taking tests, when we're studying. I received a message from a former player of mine that is now a CEO of his own company. And he talked about the mental skills that he uses to pitch ideas and talk to CEOs and investors and banks. He uses his mental skills. I wanted him to be in shape. Yes, I wanted him to be strong and fast and explosive. And once the ball stops spinning, bouncing, whatever it does, what you have left is your ability to think and what you've learned and to be able to apply. So I'm really proud of the fact that we were able to give our athletes something that lasted well beyond football.
Well, not only were you able to, you still are. And that's the blessing in what you do, because I think you're just getting started. And I can't wait to come visit you again to see what the next step is and all the great things that you guys are doing to help student athletes become the best they can be. So, Doc, I want to thank you for this opportunity to have you on the show, and keep making them better, man.
Coach Carlisle, appreciate you. Thank you.
Great insight by Dr. Pat Ivey. He provided a lot of actionable items and strategies that you can use right now, whether you're a baseball player, soccer player, whether you're in the workforce. He gave some tremendous tools to help you through any and every situation. Here is a recap of some of the things that he talked about. 1, eliminate negative thoughts. It has no place. He said that you can't think two things at the same time, so why not replace a negative thought with a positive thought? 2, the 5-second rule. He teaches his athletes to let a play go, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. Even if you just made the play of your life, you got 5 seconds to let it go, which teaches you to stay in the moment. 3, teaching athletes how to deactivate. Very, very important. He referenced that in his own journey as a student athlete, the ability to just shut it down through diaphragmatic breathing, which aids in the restoration and recovery process from intense activity. 4, he referenced a book called The 5 Levels of Leadership. Particularly, he talked about the 4th and 5th level, which is where you prepare people to be leaders. You prepare them to be leaders so they can develop other leaders. And 5, one of the things he talked about, which was essential in every area of life, is to think about the present, being in the present, right here, right now. The game is one play at a time, and therefore the thoughts, your thoughts, should be one at a time. Whether this is the first time you've listened or if you've listened to every episode, I want to say thank you. If you like what you've heard, please share it with a friend. If you're listening on the Apple Podcast app, it's super easy to share. Just tap on the 3 dots in the bottom right-hand corner and an option will appear that says Share Episode. You can text a friend the episode right there. It's super simple. We appreciate that if you'll help us in that manner. To find out more about programs to help your child improve their speed, quickness, and agility, visit www.coachcarlisle.com to register for an upcoming program to help your child get better. In the meantime, in between time, have a blessed day.